You're listening to Ideal Practice, episode number 69. And today, guys, I've got a conversation for you that I think you are going to thoroughly enjoy because we went deep, y'all. I have an outstanding guest that you are going to love, Ryane, LeCesne. Ryane she calls herself the Master Your Mindset Coach, and you'll see why once you get to know her. Together in this conversation, we're going to show you how to value your value. That is, how to get out of your own way so that you can make the kind of difference in the world that you and I both know you have been called to make. So, stay tuned. Hi, I'm Wendy Pitts-Reeves, and with over 2 decades of experience in the private practice world, I've built my 6-figure business while learning a lot of lessons the hard way. This is the first podcast that shows you how to apply the principles of energy, alignment, and strategy to build a practice that is profit-centered, but people-forward. This is the Ideal Practice Podcast. Hey guys, and welcome back. This is Wendy. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ideal Practice Podcast. So let me tell you about what you're about to get into. I am about to share with you a conversation that I had with Ryane LeCesne. Ryane she calls herself the Master Your Mindset Coach. Since 2012, so she's been at this for a while, she has coached nearly 1,000 high-achieving women, specializing in the unique needs of high-achieving Black women, where she helps them to advance their professional dreams by overcoming and healing from the self-limiting mindsets of imposter syndrome. Can you relate to that? Perfectionism. Perhaps you can relate to that. And what she calls distractionism. We talked about the shadow side of running a practice, y'all. This was a whole new concept. We talked about how your limiting beliefs, which are so sneaky, sometimes you don't even know you got them, are holding you back and what you can do about that. It was really, really a nice, deep, wide-ranging conversation. And my hope is that you are going to be inspired to think more of yourself and to show up in the world in a bigger way so that your awesomeness will shine for everybody. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. So let's get into the interview. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm so glad to have you here today. I have a real treat for you today. I'm going to introduce you to someone I have only recently met, and right off the bat, we had a conversation that just went in so many places that it was hard to rein it in. So I want to bring on to the show and welcome you, Ryane LeCesne, right? Am I saying that right? Yes.
Yes, that's right. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you to you and your listening audience for having me on your amazing show. I'm really excited to dive into today's conversation.
It's going to be juicy.
Yay.
So right off the bat, the minute we connected, we instantly found that we had a common cause, which was we want to elevate women in particular. We want to help people overcome all kinds of limiting beliefs to be more successful in their lives and in the world and to bring their goodness to the world, the good things they have to share, right? Well, why don't you start us off by telling us a little bit about first of all, where are you? I think you're in Michigan. Am I remembering that?
I am. I'm in Michigan. I'm originally from the Washington, D.C. area in Virginia, but we are now in Michigan. Here we are. Yes.
This morning awesome. I was thinking about this show and I was thinking, is it Canada? I think she's in Canada. I went, no, Michigan. That's close.
Very close. Very close. We see Canada across the waterway. We sure do.
I am geographically challenged.
I love it. No, that's great.
So who do you help and how do you help them? Let's give people a little bit of an intro.
Absolutely. And just as Wendy said, we really do dovetail our synergy around our missions.
Yeah.
My mission is to support high achieving women to really essentially advance, to live their brilliance. And what I mean by that is, and what also causes us to, have that distance between our desires and the things that we want and our goals and where we are, is what I call a personal confidence gap. And there's that gap between, I have this thing, it feels like a calling for me, whatever it is, right? It can be, It can be something as profound as someone's career, or it can be, I really want to, volunteer in this way. It can be whatever the calling is. There's a calling, there's a desire, and then there's a kind of almost like an inhale. Can I do that? Can I do it? Am I enough? And the people that I work with have a thought habit, which is a mindset. It is a habit of perceiving themselves and their position in the world through three very distinct lenses that can be very overlapping, which are through imposter syndrome. That really trips people up. Regardless of my resume, I am so afraid of being called out for not knowing, being a fraud, that I will hold myself back from, really fully engaging and taking action. And then there's also perfectionism that I see a lot in terms of these mindset habits that cause the same inhale and very hard to maneuver and be in flow with your goals and dreams. And perfectionism takes the lens of, if what I produce is not 100% correct, like if my website isn't completely finished, or if I'm not completely looking 100%, I can't go someplace, or I can't push go on my website if it's not perfect.
Or if I don't create perfection in my clients, if my clients don't do tremendously well, like I'm obviously dropping, I'm doing something.
Yeah, that's a huge one, Wendy, particularly for this audience. I know for myself, that engagement with clients of, am I showing up perfectly? Mm-hmm. What happens if I have to cancel this appointment today? Mm-hmm. Or if, I sent out an email and there's a typo. Those kinds of things can really catch perfectionists and whip them around.
Okay, so I'm trying really hard not to laugh, because I was just telling somebody yesterday that when I first started doing weekly content of any kind, I had a blog, and then I did YouTube, and then I did this. I had a particular friend, a former client, who would email me every time there was a typo in my newsletters, and which I didn't mind really, because I don't want typos, and I am obsessive about that. Talk about perfectionism. And I thought of her as like, she was not my copy editor, but like my quality control person who was out there. And I would get an email from her on Sunday morning, and I would instantly be like, oh no, what did I do this time?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah. And it can really wane on someone's self-confidence. I'm so glad you were able to, Wendy, for yourself and for your business, process that in a way where it didn't strike a chord with you of, what is wrong with me? My value was associated with this email, with these mistakes.
Yeah.
What does this mean for other people and their perception of who I am?
Right.
Thank goodness you didn't go there. You felt that moment because you're a human. So you have all of the human emotions. It registered for you. Mm-hmm, oh no, I'm kind of vulnerable out here. All right. But you really had the ability to support yourself in that moment and say, all right, I can actually, there's always a choice. I can choose to think this person is helping me. It might not be the most comfortable. However, my core value is to have things done correctly. Mm-hmm. And this person is actually helping me. And you, through that processing, which happened pretty instantaneously, you might have had to come back to it later that day and like, how do you feel about this? However, it sounds like ultimately you were able to keep yourself afloat, rather than what we're talking about, these mindsets, perfectionism would have halted you.
And well, I'm thinking the imposter syndrome and the perfectionism, those are two sides of the same coin. It seems like, if I'm not good enough, so I've got to be perfect. I'm never perfect enough, so I'm never going to be good enough. You said there was a third thing too. I do want to explore this, but what was the third thing?
Yes, the third thing is distractionism. And that's a term that I've coined in my practice, based on my personal experience, as well as what I see consistently within the field, which is undiagnosed and unmanaged ADHD. Mm. And it's, or neurodivergence in some sense that is not accounted for. And so I work with, many women who are in their 40s, and they have reached different milestones in their life where they no longer have the time or flexibility that they used to in life, either their careers or businesses have evolved to places and spaces where they have less time. They may be, have moved into parenthood, which completely zaps your time, maybe more civically engaged. So as we mature, we take on more responsibilities, there tends to be less time for us, which means we're really having to lean in on our executive functioning skills in a way that when we had more time, it might not have been as evident that they were weaker than we needed them to be.
Yeah.
And so I'm finding that there's, a number of people who are really incredibly smart, incredibly talented, have made it very far by following the traditional blueprint to success. And they're holding it together externally. They're vice presidents of things. They're business owners of things. But internally, they are wrought with fear, with guilt, with sadness, with that cognitive dissonance of like, I feel like I should be feeling better in my life, and I'm not.
Yeah, I totally get that. These are people who they're so good at compensating. They are determined. They are problem solvers. They make it happen. They find a way through. That's absolutely true. In my world, with our audience who tend to be healers, wellness professionals, psychotherapists in private practice, a lot of them are so focused on serving other people that they will drive themselves, I think, to the point of exhaustion to be there for their clients, plus their families, plus their friends, plus their church, plus whatever. And I think that these three, I hadn't thought about the distractionism, which is a great word. I hadn't thought about that before, but I do think that that's true. And I think I see this as well, that so many of these folks are just flat exhausted because they are pushing so hard just to hold it together all the time. Yeah,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, that can only, whether someone has neurodivergence or not, that can really only wane on someone's executive functioning ability, right?
Yeah.
If you're like so burnt out and so taxed, that is literally occupying that prefrontal cortex of like, how do I make what are my priorities? What are my, and I think for this particular audience, and I am of this audience, I am a practitioner, I'm a healer, I'm in the business of helping people. Many of us, I dare say, including myself, we came into practice to practice. We didn't come into practice to be business owners. And that's what we are. And so, there's a whole piece, at least for me and my personal experience, where one, I came into coaching as I also came into my business. So I had to overcome the technician part of imposter syndrome, meaning like as a coach, I can do this, right? Like I can actually hold the space for people. I can ask the questions. That was a whole incredible learning curve for a person who has a tendency of showing up as imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and distractionism. I am my best client. So that was its own hurdle. Now, if I had gone as a coach to be hired by a coaching agency, that would have been maybe the end of my learning curve there. However, I went into business for myself as your client, as your audience has as well. And now it's really not about my competency as a coach, although it is. It's really about my competency as a business owner.
Yeah.
And that's where my imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and distractionism it wasn't even like the Band-Aid was ripped off. It was like the cast was taken off.
Oh,
it was
wow.
like, oh my goodness, here I am having to exchange my knowledge for dollars.
Who am I? Who am I to do that?
To do that. And that was a really big learning curve to stand in my personal power and to begin to value my value and to begin to see that not only do I add value, and that's such a nice thing for humanity, I add value and that value is in fact exchangeable for dollars. Like that's the currency. And
yeah. So I know you know this, but like that is like that step, what you just said about if I was trained as a coach and I went and got a job with a coaching service, a coaching agency of some sort, that could have been the end of it. All I had to do was get comfortable with the service piece. But stepping into the role of CEO, which is what you are when you're running a practice, that's a whole nother level of performance and a whole nother level of personal growth, right? And my people have heard this a lot. When I first started my practice, I hated that part. Like, I mean, I loved business in a lot of ways more than I thought I would. But the whole concept of charging and collecting real, live, honest to God money from people, about had a meltdown over it. I felt like I didn't want to touch money. Like I literally physically didn't want it in the room with us. Yeah. You're nodding your head. Yeah. So for you, when you made that decision and made that leap, because that's the first big milestone, I think, is to learn how to be comfortable with that. Talk to me about what you found for yourself personally and what you see in your coaching clients around that. When you how do you get comfortable with the whole concept of taking money for what you do? Such a loaded question.
Huge. It's and it's hugely important. It's so important because I believe this is a sticking point. Everyone has a money story, so even the wealthiest of the wealthy have a money story of whatever it is. So, and we hear that, we know that, but really, I think that there is like a common money story that we're talking about, which are people who come into a service and are very passionate about helping, healing. And oftentimes we are our own best clients. I know I am for myself. So imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and distractionism are something that I really struggle with personally to stay on top of. And so we often are our own best client, meaning we're healing our own trauma in a lot of ways, or we are evolving as our practice evolves, as our service evolves. And so, as you said, that's a whole layer of introspection and a whole layer of loveliness and shadow and light and all kinds of things to figure out all on its own. And then when you're talking about adding money into the story, you're really talking about which is probably one of the primal core. If someone's into the chakra system, you're talking about root chakra 1, 2, 3, your safety. You're talking about your livelihood. You're talking about your emotional support system, and you're talking about your confidence. We're talking about, base Maslow's hierarchy, the very base survival. And so there's a lot of story and stickiness there already. And the folks that we're talking to today are really looking to go into business, I'm sure, to have freedom, to have time freedom, money freedom, time with their family, their loved ones, their hobbies. And if we don't wrestle with this question, if we don't shine light on this shadow, what we wind up with are individuals who are highly talented in the midst of nervous breakdowns.
Oh, wow.
To me, what winds up happening, because we are so committed to the practice of helping. And yet, if this money block doesn't release itself, we can't really have thriving businesses. And so we're always chasing our tail.
Say that again. I really want to put a pin in that. I just wrote down the shadow side of business, the shadow side of private practice, which is really that's a lovely concept and something I have not thought of before. I love that. I can totally sink my teeth into that. And what you just said was something like, I want to repeat it, that if you don't tune into this shadow side of owning a business, that you end up with people who are highly effective, highly functioning, doing really great work, who are having a nervous breakdown inside. Is that what you said? Who are falling apart inside?
Totally believe it. Totally believe it. Because so just listening, Wendy, to what you talked about how viscerally, the dislike for money that you had, right? Dislike. And I share that. I mean, I really, and I was nodding oh, I totally understand what you're saying.
I'm not that way anymore. I'll put it that way.
And you're thriving, right?
Yeah.
You're thriving.
Took a long time though.
Important.
Yeah.
Likewise, because these are paradigm shifts, and I think with economics or with a goal, you can hit a goal and then you have a new goal. So you're back almost to square one. Gosh, I thought I had overcome that money story. And now I'm moving into this next bracket and I've got a whole nother money story.
Amen.
So it's ever evolving because we are sweet, dear humans. And yet I do believe that. I think, again, going back to the statement that you made, just really dislike. And I felt this way about, just as another element, about communications, another element of business. I hated actually coming into this year because of just life circumstances, moved a number of times. We have a little one. COVID was really, really challenging. I wound up after a really, rocking financial year with my business, hating communications. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I don't want to do it. It feels too exposing for me to have to give my opinion all the time. I have to chase after it. I've got to, all these bells and whistles. I hate it. I hated it to a core of myself. So I also recognized, this is a real limiting belief here. This is a real issue, And so it was a real mirror for me that as long as I hate this thing that is actually the conduit between me and my audience, it's the flow. And so if I am stuck in the mud around this or the quicksand around this, it is an impediment in my business because I'm the only one here to do it. And until I wrestle that shadow into the ground, I'm going to either be doing communications and it's going to be really difficult. I'm going to be loathing this experience, or I'm going to not do it and my business is going to suffer. Either way, I'm loathing.
Let me ask you, just for clarification, when you're talking about communication, are you talking about reaching out to clients, returning phone calls, or are you talking about social media, marketing?
Social media, marketing, having to get out and expose yourself.
Being
and here we
seen.
are again. We've moved one more time and I have to start a new network over. Oh no, here we are. I don't want to do this.
Please don't make me.
Please don't make me. And these are aspects, again, of owning a business because I didn't sign up to be a social media consultant. I want to be with my clients. And the other part that's really slippery here is that we are one being, meaning I am one person that has all these multifaceted experiences within myself, as we're talking about. And I don't necessarily recognize in real time, and I'm just using myself as an example, we as human beings don't recognize in real time because something is uncomfortable, right? This going back to the example of communications. I have to once again, send out an email. And so I'm sitting in front of the computer and it's very difficult. It just does not feel good. All these thoughts are going through my mind. The thoughts are not clear, oh, obviously you are having a limiting experience right now. And just, it sounds like I hate this. I'm not good at this. Stuff from the third grade comes up, just stuff.
You're not having a high-minded coaching moment where you're just observing yourself and going, now, honey, you know that you can do this. You're going, this is a bunch of crap and I don't want to do it. You're in the muck. Yeah.
In the muck.
Yeah.
And what
which is how I used to feel about money, right? I felt that way when I was having to ask clients for money, when I had to deal with billing, when I had to look at business finances, all that. It just felt, so I just tended to avoid it. And of course, what happens when you avoid it? Your business doesn't really do very well. And communications, that's a really great example because that also, actually, I see a lot of clients dealing with that. It's the whole thing about being seen. I don't want to bother people. I don't want to ask for referrals. All of it is part and parcel of the same thing. So what's the belief that's under all that? Whether it's money, whether it's communication, what's the belief that's driving that?
Exactly. And that's what we've got to really hone in on. And that's what I help my clients hone in on is what is the belief? What's the belief there? And it's not the behavior. So I could post 65,000 times and that is not going to support me feel any better about myself or about my business. Now, eventually at some point I might get practiced enough, but most likely what's going to happen is exactly what you talked about, Wendy, is I'm not going to do it. I'm going to avoid it. And we are business owners. So there's a bazillion things I could focus on that are highly important other than that one thing or four things that I don't want to do.
Right.
So I can easily stay distracted for a long, long time. But what happens is that thing stays in the back of my mind and that thing also begins to erode my self-confidence. See, there's that one more thing you're not doing. You are not good at that. It's not a high elevated thinking of oh, this is a skill that if I look at objectively, I can build the muscle around. It's an internal experience. It's all conflated. It's all one moment where it feels so yucky. You're a bad person. You can't do it. And what do you think about that? Self. And that's how we tend to talk to ourselves. And that's a habit. That is a really, really detrimental habit. And so, you asked at the beginning of the question, what do you do about this? Like, how do you kind of get yourself out of these experiences? And one of the things that I really had to do, talking about communications, keeping with that story, is I had to sit with, what is the limiting belief here? What's going on?
Yeah.
What are you believing about yourself, your ability to communicate?
What's the story I'm telling myself here?
That you're telling yourself here, because that's what's standing in the way. And so I did. I sat with it. I coached myself around it.
Yep.
I have a coach, so coached around it, really sat with it. And one of the things that I would say consistently came up for me, and I think is one of the ways out of that quicksand, is really getting clear on what your value is. Really clear around what your value is. Because what I was finding was I'm having a hard time communicating, because not so much I don't know what to communicate about, but, like, what makes me distinctly different from someone else? How am I different? And these are questions that aren't necessarily feel good questions for people who have a tendency to see the world through imposter syndrome and perfectionism.
Let me ask you, I didn't tell you I was going to interrupt you constantly, but I'm going
to. It's so good. I love it.
I think I've got to start warning people about that, because I want to highlight certain things and I want to talk about certain things, right?
It's a conversation.
I just want to make sure that I'm following you. So first of all, the fact that you didn't sit down and go, I've got to learn how to do this. So what do I need to do? What's the post I got to write? What's the email I got to do? It wasn't about strategy. You knew that there's a strategy that you need to employ, but you were running into a roadblock, and your first thought is, I need to figure this out inside. What's going on inside of me that's making this hard? So that's the first thing. Really, I want to highlight that, because I see this a lot with my coaching clients, and I see this a lot with my audience. There's something in your practice that you want to do and you can't make yourself do it, whether it is reach out to a referral source, whether it's going to a networking event, whether it is submitting your name to speak at an academic conference, whether it's just returning a phone call from a potential client, right? So the first thing is, I got to do this. I should do this. This is good for my business. I don't want to do this. Why don't I want to do this? That's the first thing. The second thing that I loved about what you just did was, you're going into, so what is the limiting belief? And then when you said the part about value, like for a split second there, I was like, wait a minute, how are you getting from one to the other? Well, I got it. I think I got it, which is that I can't communicate unless I am clear about what my value is, because that's what I want to communicate, right? The whole point of sharing your business with the world is saying, this is who I am. This is what I can do for you. I can help you. And that means you have to believe that you can do that. Am I following you right? Is that where you were tripping up?
Yeah. 100%. Exactly. Yeah. And I'll actually laser into the experience. And I want to say that to your listening audience, because I was 6 years into business at the time that we're talking about. So I was not new into business. 6 years into business. I had an incredible year the year before, working part-time and meeting my goals. I mean, so I'm not talking about I'm new in my business.
Right.
And I want to be real clear with that, because, we can often, I know I can do it. I can look at Beyonce and I can say, oh my gosh, she's so amazing. Like, how does anyone ever get to that point in the epicenter, like the epic of their career? Well, going back to value, I'm not sure how it happened, but Beyonce understood her value and her clarity much earlier than I did in my life. And so she's ridden it out for a longer period of time.
Yes.
And for each of us, we are our own Beyoncés in our lives. We have people who love us. We know we're famous to people, people will show up at things for us. And so are we clear on our value? Are we clear on who we are? Are we clear on, I come into a room and I don't have to worry about I'm an imposter, because I know that when I come into a room, I bring a smile, I bring kindness, I bring a sensitivity. I don't necessarily bring time management, but I'll bring a good time, So I really know
I don't have to be perfect.
I don't have to be perfect. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so as you are, we're talking about owning a business, having a practice. So all the things we do, one of the things is marketing. And when you're doing your marketing and you're taking a sales training or something like that, the question that they ask is, what is your value?
Yeah.
What's your value? And I was in the midst of doing this exercise with my coach. What's your value? Because she was really pushing me. Again, I've got goals. I want to get to the next level. what's your value, Ryane? And
you're not talking about what do you charge? You're not talking about,
oh, yes, no.
Talking about what do you bring to the table that is unique? What's special about you? Talk about loaded language. What? Me? There's nothing special about me. I'm just here to help people. Don't even look at me.
Wendy, exactly. And it came back almost feeling void. And I'm 7 years in. I've got videos of clients talking about how I've helped them change their lives. Like,
I'm doing something good here.
I'm doing something good. And that was interesting feedback. Like, oh, wow, Ryane, you are having a difficult time doing this. And this is what I do for people, like, so sitting with that was really uncomfortable. And it required me to like do the digging. And in doing the digging, it's very uncomfortable. I really sat with many iterations of what does make me special. And going through that process was an incredibly confidence building process, because what I really wound up recognizing is I do add value. Like, I am distinctly different than any other coach. And it doesn't make another coach worse or better.
Right.
It makes me distinctly different.
Yeah.
And really standing in that and standing in, I could confidently say, Wendy, if you and I were on a panel together, I could confidently say, I know that if you were to coach with Wendy and you were to coach with me, you would have incredible outcomes with both. With me, these are the things that I talk about. And with Wendy, and Wendy would be able to say, these are the things that she talks about. Right. So we talk about different sort of nuances of this. And so feeling that, even seeing us on a panel, that whole metaphor was just something new that came to me. But like that idea that so often we feel like we have to be in conflict with someone, how am I different from her in a competitive kind of way, where we have to like go to bat? We're talking about a panel, just as a metaphor, I have to like jockey, against this person. No, it's really about, and what I talk about with my clients is, what is your brilliance? How are you distinctly different from other people?
Oh, I want to highlight that. What is your brilliance? So I want to just respond to something real quick.
Yeah.
While I write down what is your brilliance, because that's beautiful. In my world, it's rare to find somebody who would take on that sort of competitive edge. Like, that's not where we tend to go. Where we tend to go is like, oh no, that's fine. You're probably better than I am. We play small. It is so hardwired into us to not put ourselves first, which I fight against this constantly. Like, it doesn't make you arrogant or stuck up or rude because you believe that you have brilliance. It means that you have something special to offer the world, just like your friend and colleagues do. And that their clients who need what you have are going to find you when you own it. This is what I'm hearing from you, that you've got to own your value. It means recognize your brilliance and let it shine and quit apologizing for it. Oh, Lord, I could so go off on a soapbox here.
and it's so important, Wendy. It's so important to go on that soapbox. And thank you for that clarity, because I think, one, I too am a light dimmer of stuff. Like, I have to really be conscious of that, because I do think that, your audience, and myself included, we are helpers. And so there is, and I think that we also have been socialized as helpers. There's a lot of social construct around what it means to be a helper. There's a lot of religious undertone around money. I mean, there's so many things we can think about here. And, we are taught in a Judeo-Christian environment that helpers and healers are supposed to also be pious, and you're supposed to be poor. And there's like a whole thing here, it's like really, really.
I call it social work thinking. It's social work thinking, right? It's okay to make money. What was it I told you the other day? I had heard somebody say, for some reason in our society, it's okay to make money when you're not helping people. You're selling bicycles, you're selling cars, you're building houses, but it is not okay to make money when you're helping people, changing lives, changing family trees, uplifting entire communities. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Crazy.
And speaking of that, I had a real watershed moment, speaking about this communication thing. This was really weighing on me quite heavily. I was in the car one day and I was really having just like, an emotional moment, thinking about all the things that were on my plate. And I realized in that moment, I was having a hard time. I heard myself be my own best friend, which
Mm.
is what I teach my clients to do, to really be their own best friends. And how in those hard moments do you come in and you say, is that true? Is it really true that you don't add value? Is it really true that you don't have anything special? And I was in the midst of like this catching myself conversation. I was in the midst of the quicksand. Rather than stay there or kind of push it away, I heard this best friend come in and I heard this other willingness conversation.
Mm.
And what I realized in that moment was, oh my God, this is what I do for my clients. This is my value. I teach my clients how to be in their car and have these really hard moments and how to use these proven steps and tools and mindset understanding and science and all of the energy management pieces. They use that all together, everything that they've learned from me, and they catch themselves in these moments that are really hard, just like you're doing. And they use that work and they save themselves. You are a fisher of women. You teach women to fish for themselves. Like, this is value. And it was just this real coming to home experience of like, this is the value right here, and it was a very big confidence booster of like, no, this is life-saving. Like, this is not even
bless your heart
about money,
Yeah, you owned it in that moment. You felt it for yourself and you saw, this is what I do for others. Oh, bless. That's just gorgeous.
And so, for your listening audience to really step into that they actually do the thing that they do and that thing matters, like it matters, and that mattering in the material world is money. Like that's the matter that's exchanged between the help that they provide and the person who needs that help. The mattering is money, and to really like own that. And it doesn't mean that you have to charge, prices that are not within your market, or you don't have to do that, but you certainly are owed your value for sure.
Well, to me, it's an act of respect for your client and yourself when you are comfortable with the exchange of that value, when you're comfortable with the exchange of money, because what you're saying to your client is, this work is really important. And I love that you are willing to invest in yourself by working with me. And I understand that I have an important role here too. And I love that also. And so I'll give you my best self and you pay for those services, and we're equals in this relationship. I can't think of anything more respectful than that.
Absolutely, Wendy.
So good.
It is so good.
I love Ryane. I love just the look on your face as you were sharing that. It just then was really, really beautiful and special. And I just love, those are the moments that can leave you in a puddle on the floor if you're not careful. But sometimes it's overwhelming emotion. Sometimes I feel like you've been struck by a lightning bolt, but it's that, oh my gosh, this is it. This is it. And I love that you started with you, that it was your awareness that, wait a minute, what are you talking about here? Like, I love the best friend. Like, there's this other voice inside. This is your higher self. Obviously, this is your higher self that is saying, wait a minute, daughter. Wait a minute, sister. What's this stuff? Is that really true? No, it's not true.
Yeah.
Calling you into a better place, calling you into a higher place, which you then turn around and share with your clients. Lord, that's just really, really awesome.
Thank you. And I do want to say that the reason why I was able to go to me was only because of the coaching work, only because of the work that I do, and not because of my coach, but because of like the work because of the practice, not the business, but the practice. Yeah. Because I've been doing the practice so long, I was able to go from, now I was stuck in hate, and hate was very external. I hate this. I hate it, so it went through various layers, right? Of like self-actualization from the outside of, I hate social media. I hate communications. I don't ever want to do this. I don't want to touch it again, to just this recognition of like, okay, you hear yourself, you hear, and I do the work. I know what I say matters, and I'm looking at it, and it's like the best mirror for me. It was like, I couldn't escape it. It's like, I know too much to not escape that one.
Yeah. So, once you know, you can't not know.
You can't not know. So it did go through layers, but it ended up with me. And I have a strong knowing that our lives are based on our beliefs. And so I had to really, really tackle that belief.
Yeah. What do you think some of the most common limiting beliefs are that get in the way of wellness professionals, healing arts practitioners, therapists, yoga teachers, energy healers? What do you think is the limiting belief that, or some, maybe two or three that are so common that are getting in the way? And then let's talk about the belief triad. I want to explore that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the core of any limiting belief is I'm not enough. I'm not enough to do the thing. I'm not enough to make it happen. And we tend to, as human beings, we tend to, as you talked about with your clients around communications, we talk about the tactic. We talk about like, I can't post on social media. I can't push go. I can't charge people. I can't do, and that's what we can observe. We can like see that. And so then we can get advice, or we can tell ourselves like, well, just do it. Just make it happen. Just override that. And that's very difficult because of the belief, we're only going to do what we believe. And so it doesn't matter if the advice is great, or you even have a PhD in social media or in client referrals or in whatever. If you believe you're not enough to make that happen, you won't do it. You won't do it. We do what we feel, we do what we believe, not what we cognitively know. That's the cognitive dissonance. It's like, I know I should do this thing, but boy, I don't feel like I'm enough to do it.
Right. You will self-sabotage every time.
Every time.
Yep.
And it's so subconscious. And this is a lot of the work that I do with clients is on this really speaking to yourself on the subconscious level, because what the experience I was having going back to this watershed moment in the car, I was really emotional. And at the moment, because I was so emotional, I really, my conscious thinking was very narrow, and everything that was coming up was absolutely subconscious mind. 10 years ago when this happened, or this always happens, or just this very emotional state that is absolutely the subconscious, running the show. And as it's always running the show. And what I had to do, and what was evident in that moment, is I had impressed upon my subconscious mind enough of a new belief. No, you are valuable. No, you are enough. It's part of the conversation now. Like, you don't disbelieve that anymore. You used to, but you don't anymore. Now you believe.
You had an alternate voice right.
Yeah. And so we do what we believe. And so at the core, it's I'm not enough. And it translates into 100 bazillion things that we've talked about today. Like, I can't ask for referrals. I couldn't do that. Well, she does it, but she has over there a network that makes it work. I don't have it. So starters of sentences are things like I should, I need to, I can't, they can, but I can't. Anything after that essentially is a limiting belief. And then we've got to really question, well, that's
a really good way to catch yourself. That's a really good way. Like, to become an observer of yourself is the first step to changing this. So pay attention to your language. Right. That's a really good point. Okay.
Absolutely. And that's, what I would work with clients on, really getting familiar with what are they saying, how to become mindful of that conversation, because what comes out of their mouths is 5% of what they're really feeling and thinking, because all of that is in the subconscious mind. And we're just hearing a very teeny little bit of it. So it is not so much about necessarily like focusing on the thing that somebody wants to accomplish. It is really thinking about what is the story I'm telling myself as to why I can't have that thing.
Yes.
And that's the story that needs to be changed.
Okay, hold on. Highlight. Let's focus on that. It's not about the goal I want to achieve. It's not about the outcome I want to get to. It's about who I have to be to get there, and the story I'm telling myself about who I am. It's the story. Y'all, listen to this. I need you guys to hear this, that the story that you tell yourself about who you are impacts everything in your practice, the impact you have on your clients. It impacts the ease with which you get through your day. It impacts your financial bottom line. I guarantee it. That is so critical. It isn't about the goal. It's not about the tactic. We can talk tactics all day long. If you believe that I heard somebody say this on a podcast one time. If your core belief or your core identity is you're a poor kid from the Bronx, you're always going to be a poor kid from the Bronx, no matter where you go or what happens. If your belief is that you're a poor kid from South Georgia growing up in cotton mills, you're always going to have that in you. That's where you've got to start. Okay. I love this, Ryane. This is really beautiful. So
Have to. Mm-hmm.
So how does that ripple through your life? Like where does that go? What are the impacts for that? I mean, I've already said a few of them, but I bet you have more. And then what do you do about it? Take us through.
Absolutely. No, Wendy, what you just really spotlighted and held for your audience is this is the piece here.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the piece, because when you're talking about honestly any topic, but we're talking about business, this stuff isn't really rocket science. I mean, we're talking about kind of basic practices that none of us have really, no one's recreating the wheel.
Yeah.
You have your skill and there's people out there that need it. And somehow you communicate, you promote, and you exchange dollars and you have a business. Like it's not that complicated. Right. And, you have to, in this day and age, you have to have like a social media channel if you want, but you don't have to. Like that's not even a need. You don't have to have email. And so even saying something like, I have to have email, I have to do social, I have to do, is that true? But then also what's causing you not to necessarily do that thing? What's causing you not to share your story? However, the essence is a business is pretty basic. So it's not about do we or do we not know what to do? Or even how to do it. It's do we feel confident that we can do it, that we're the competent people? And if we don't feel like we're competent, we won't. And then won't becomes what's called procrastination. And because we're high achievers, we look at procrastination and we look at that thing over there. And then we point at the thing, and all those fingers that are pointing back at us when we point is you're not a good person because you're procrastinating.
Yeah.
Look at you. Look how bad you are.
Yeah.
And if you were a better person, then you wouldn't procrastinate. So it becomes like a self-worth kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that erodes at the person's self-confidence, which exacerbates the limiting belief and almost even gives evidence of that limiting belief. See, you're not good. You procrastinate and you don't do social media. And that makes it even worse. Or you hate dollars, or you hate whatever it is, it exacerbates the thing that you're looking to get.
Where attention goes, energy grows. Woo. Right. Yes. Right. So whatever you focus on gets bigger. So if your focus is on, I can't do that, I should do that, I'm not doing that, golly, what a loser I am because I'm not doing that, then that's what's going to get bigger. So the first step, it sounds like, is to recognize that there's a belief at work here more than anything else. And then just to catch it. And then the second thing is to coach yourself through that.
That's right. Coach yourself through that. Coach yourself through that. So I have 8 steps that I really teach clients to embody. And the first 3 are foundational, and it's clarity. And that's what we're talking about right now. Clarity around what do you want and what's the fear. So that's clear. It's like 2 sides of that coin. And then moving into courage. And this is the coaching part. There's a book called The Courage to Be Disliked. It's Adlerian psychology, which is basically the idea of we make so many decisions as people. Well, first, as human beings, belonging is primal to who and what we are. Belonging is necessary. So we are hardwired for belonging. So we can do things, and we tend to do things unconsciously that we believe are going to wed us to belonging. And I think for this group, for your audience, what we believe might wed us to belonging as healers is if we dim our light. If I dim my light, then I'll belong, right?
Yes.
Then I'll belong. I'll have a space. I'll be more authentic. I don't really care about money anyway. I just want to help people.
Yes. Ah.
Right.
I get so tired of that. Yes.
So much so. And so it is about getting familiar with, oh, wow, okay, this is actually a self-limiting belief. And now I have to do something about that. I have to have the courage to be going on the book, courage to be disliked, courage just to be myself. And if someone doesn't like a post, or someone doesn't want to give a referral, or if somebody doesn't like my email, or if a client didn't have the most incredible outcome, or if the class I taught of yoga wasn't the most amazing, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. That,
Yeah.
right. Somebody
So
doesn't
what?
like me. It's all right. Fine. Not a
Right.
problem. And really being okay with that, having the
Mhm.
courage to be ourselves, the courage to reframe, the courage to value your value when you don't, the courage to be your friend when it seems really difficult. Because what that does is it leads to step number 3, which is confidence. The ability to then take confident action to move forward, because you have the clarity on both of those pieces. I know what I want, which so often we don't know what we want. I know what I want. I also know what the boogeyman is, so I'm aware of that. And because I'm aware of the boogeyman, I now can move into courage, which is combating the boogeyman and saying really the opposite. And then because I'm in the zone of courage, I can move to that next level of confidence. I can feel like I can move. And so that piece is really helpful.
So what I'm loving about this, well, for one, I really like alliteration, so I'll just say that. But I really love, so clarity, when you're talking about getting clear about what you want and about what the fear is around what you want. I haven't seen those paired quite that way before, and I think that is brilliant. I think often, I see this especially with women. I don't know if the guys do this as much. Maybe they do, but I certainly hear it among women. I hear this from my women counseling clients, much less coaching people, that we never allow ourselves to even think about what we want. We don't ask it. We don't know. And we scramble when people ask, well, what do you really want? Oh, I don't know. I just want to help people. Keep coming back to that, but we don't. So not only what do you want? Do you want a 6-figure practice? Do you want a 7-figure practice? Do you want a group practice that is making a hell of an impact in your town? And if you do you want to work 6 months out of the year and take 6 months off, whatever? What's the fear that immediately, because you said this at the beginning today, you said we have a calling, we have an inspiration, something happens and we kind of go, I really want to do this. Then there's an immediate inhale, an immediate, oh, I could possibly do that. Like, right. And I love that. We have a big idea, a big dream, a big vision, if we allow ourselves to admit it. And there's going to be a big fear. And the bigger the dream, the bigger the fear. That's one thing. I love that you got to get clear about what that is. So you know it and you own it and you recognize it. And then from there, because you know, okay, that's what I'm afraid of. Got it. All right. At least I know it. Now, I always say that we are more courageous than we know, that you are already courageous. We just don't recognize it. So now that you know that fear is there, step into the courage that you're carrying and act and be willing to be imperfect, be willing to move forward. And something else you said that I really want to highlight, Ryane. I don't mean to be talking so much, but you're saying some really good, juicy things that I want to capture. The other one is you said to be willing to be disliked. You have to be willing to be a disruptor. When you are doing things well, you're going to have people who adore you and people who won't have anything to do with you. And that's when you know you're on the right track. You will attract and repel. Yeah. Lord, that does
so
take
true.
Yeah, that's really good.
It does. It's so true. And, I think about one, so many things. One, Wendy, when you ask those really beautiful, open-ended questions, as I was like listening to them and thinking about how would I answer them myself, and some of them, oh my gosh, wow, whoa, big. And I could feel it was before you had mentioned that ebb and flow of like big idea, the calling, and then the breath. And I could feel it happening. Like, how would I? Oh, 6 months or not, or, oh, wow. And what's kind of coming to mind was how that, I don't want to call it a void, but that the space that's opened, okay, let me step into this here. It's like the calling creates a space.
Yes.
Right?
A vacuum.
A vacuum. There it is. Vacuum. I wanted to say void, but it wasn't. It was a vacuum. And I think through socialization, I think through these mindsets that we've been talking about, which comes through socialization, we're taught these things to be perfect. No one can see that you've made a mistake, and then if there's any kind of neurodivergence, like if decisions are difficult for you, your nervous system to make, it gets overwhelming for you, like all of that is taking place at any given time. Right. Yeah. And so there's a lot of data that's like taking place in someone's nervous system as these questions are even being contemplated. Yeah. And that stimuli that's happening in the nervous system. There's a really great, am I going to be able to pull her name? Judith. She is deep, like guru in the chakra study. So energy medicine, but Judith, it's going to come to me. She talks about a surge. She frames it as a surge. It's like a charge, of energy that comes up. And that charge is very powerful. It's an inspired charge. And that charge can be translated into two ways. One is fear and the other is excitement.
Absolutely. I have always said that it's two sides. That's the same feeling, just with different meaning attached. Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I think that stimuli can be so shocking to people. And by the way that we're hardwired, from what I understand from the studies, about 80% of our thoughts are fear-based thoughts, just to keep us alive.
Wow.
Like when in primitive times, I want to go out there and see what's happening. Nope, you don't do that. You stay close to where we are. You don't branch out. Like fear is hardwired in who we are to stay, protected.
Stay safe. Right.
Exactly. And that vulnerability piece, what we're talking about at this level. And so all these kinds of things happen at the moment of a surge. And so I think what we're talking about here is becoming more masterful about translating that surge, that energy from the overwhelm. I can't do this. Oh my God, this idea came to me. This is for me. I'm excited. There are people who actually think that way. They're like, this idea is the best thing ever. And we've thought that way about other things. I mean, people might have a hard time in their practice, but I'm listening to this great book. Krispy Kreme donut came to Colorado, and the author is from Colorado. And she was talking about how people stood in line for 5 hours to get a donut. At that moment, they were, there was nothing impeding them because there was no false limiting belief of I can't have a donut. But there is a false limiting belief of I'm not enough to charge my prices, or I'm not enough to ask for a referral. Yeah. And so, getting more Krispy Kreme with our ideas, like an ideas come to us. I can send out this marketing idea, or I could charge this price, or I could ask for this referral. I could have that new offering, and really allowing yourself to catch your breath and then lean all the way into, I know I can do this.
Yes.
I know I can.
Yes.
That's the toggle, I think, that we're really trying to teach people to get more comfortable with the I can versus I can't. Because that's the core of what we're going to be able to do.
Yeah. And in order for you to make the kind of mark on the world you want to make, you're not going to get there by playing small, and you're not going to get there by letting fear drive the bus. So the fear is normal and healthy and natural. Like you said 70, 80% of our thoughts are about fear or about staying safe. I think I hadn't thought about it, but I bet that's true. So, but when you are an entrepreneur, or when you are the CEO of a small business, you're already different than everybody else anyway. Like whenever I speak to audiences, I always say, you're all a little crazy, right? Like you have to be a little crazy to do this. And most of us are seen as kind of the crazy ones in our family because we do this like ridiculous stuff, like go off and start a business. Like whoever thought that was a good idea? And yet we do it because we have a really big calling, a big idea, a big dream. We want to serve people the way we want to do it. Most of our people have worked, or my people have worked in hospitals and agencies, and have done good things, have seen important work, but want to do it their own way, have their own idea about how they want to make a difference for people, or have a unique skill set they want to develop, or really, really, really want to work with 6-year-olds, whatever. But you were talking about that energy. It makes me think of Shakti energy a little bit, but it is the lightning bolt. And I have had those moments myself, moments of inspiration that hit you so hard that I get chills and I usually tear up a little bit. And it's like this body level of knowing of, oh my gosh, and that, that happened when I first got clear about what I wanted to do with the practice at all. Let me get water. Hold on. I suddenly it wasn't about the practice at all. I wanted to empower women to run businesses. And this was 25 years ago when I knew nothing about any of this. Right. But that kind of moment has happened dozens of times throughout my life when a lightning bolt hits and it's like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. I think that is your soul's recognition of your purpose. And I think you have to listen to it. But what you're saying is, if you don't do the work of recognizing that there's a belief system at play here, and if you don't do whatever you have to do, and you've got all kinds of tools to help people with this, if you don't get past that and learn how to catch that and flip it and move through, use your courage to show up in the way your business needs you to show up, you're not going to help people the way you want to. And I would say you're also not going to make the kind of money you want to make. And I personally would like to see you do both. So yeah, I love it. So people can't see this, but you were like, yes, 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 yes. I love that.
100%. Yes, yes, yes. And two clear visuals came up as you were talking, Wendy. One is this idea that, life force is always flowing to us, always, right? So there's like idea of a hose at the tap and it's turned all the way on. Life force is just flowing. There's ideas, there's energy, there's substance that's always flowing to us, inspiration. And like a hose, we've got long journeys, long lives. There's kinks in those hoses. I mean, it can be like a real knot. And we also know that it doesn't have to take like a very odd, like hoses aren't usually in knots like how you would tie a shoe.
Right.
It's like a kink. It's like a folded thing. You can almost not even see it sometimes. Right. Yeah. And so those kinks don't mean that the faucet's not on.
Yes.
It means that there's a kink there and there's actually a lot of pressure in the back to get that water flowing. And that can be the feeling of like the pressure that your audience feels to quote unquote get it right or to do the things. And then there's the limiting belief, the kink that won't let it flow.
Yes.
And it is mounding and that energy is building and the confidence is being questioned and the urgency is happening and the bills are piling up. And so that energy is happening. It's happening behind that kink. And it's like how to, acknowledge that the flow is there and how to, straighten out those
let
kinks.
It go. Yeah. Let it flow.
Let it go. Cause it's there. It's there for everyone. Mm-hmm.
That's a really beautiful metaphor for explaining the pressure people might feel internally. And the more you want something and the more you feel like you're not doing it right, the more you beat yourself up, the more that pressure grows. I love that. Yeah. So Ryane, this is beautiful and wide-ranging conversation. And I hope that those who listen take away from this that there's nothing wrong with you. If you have some of these feelings, it just means that you're alive and that you're human. And I think it means that you're being called to grow. I really think if you're feeling all stirred up and a little, that just means the universe is shaking you up a little bit and saying, come on, let that, get the cat out of there. It's go big because there's big stuff that is coming through you. And we need to open up. We need to open things up and let that flow. I know you have lots of tools and lots of ways for helping people with that. Would you like to share, how do people find you? What do you do? How can somebody work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. So I can be found. My company is called Inspire Brand Consulting. That's also our website, Inspire Brand Consulting. And I offer two, free points of contact. If someone's feeling like I really want to connect with Ryane and hear more about what's happening and talk, I offer a complimentary discovery call. You can find that on my website, inspirebrandconsulting.com. Book a call or even /gift. We'll get you to that direct link. And then I also have a quiz that is almost like a 17 magazine quiz or People magazine quiz. Gives you just based on your answers, a little sound bite of those three mindsets: imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and distractionism. And based on your answers, just what that feedback might be and some insight around those three mindsets. Okay. And so those are two ways, that people can get in touch with me. Awesome. And then for social media through Inspire Brand Consulting as well. Okay. Offer tidbits on Instagram and LinkedIn and things like that.
Oh, all that communication stuff.
All that communication stuff. Yes, that I have reestablished my value and we are in flow. Thank goodness. Yeah,
that's funny.
That kink got released. Mm-hmm.
I love that. Yeah, and I'm like that with money. That's really funny. I love that.
Let it rain.
We will drop that. We'll put that in the show notes down below for sure. And those of you who hear this, if Ryane has touched your heart at all, please reach out to her and let her know that. When you do this kind of work, we're speaking into the void, y'all. We can't see your faces. It's really lovely when you reach out and go, that was awesome. Whether it is sending her an email, sending her a DM, finding her on social media, whatever, let her know that she has lifted your life in some way today. That would be really helpful.
Oh, well, thank you.
And I guess this is a good spot to stop because now I'm thinking I want to talk about clarity, courage, and confidence, and which will close that personal confidence gap that we started with today. And when you close that gap, by golly, your practice is going to rock and you're going to make a difference in the world because you are owning your brilliance and letting it shine.
Yes.
What a perfect place to start.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So one last thing I always like to ask folks, is there anything we haven't covered, anything I haven't asked you? Is there anything that you feel called to share that would, like, one more thing that would make this conversation complete?
Well, I think did you want to talk about the vision and the thought and the triad? Did you
Yeah,
want?
we didn't get there, but yeah, you could do that real quick. We never did get there.
Drop that in real quick.
Yeah.
So when we talk about these beliefs, and we're talking about fear, and we're talking about, to put it simply, like tapping into becoming familiar with fear, right? What is the fear? There are three main ways to kind of, I'll say, get familiar, or like tap into, or kind of like triangulate, because there's three. Triangulate your fear. Let's think about it that way. So first is your thoughts. Become familiar with your thoughts. What are you saying to yourself about said, goal? The thoughts have corresponding feelings. So what are the emotions, right? Is it guilt? Is it shame? Is it fear? Is it apathy, doubt? What's happening, right? And the third is the vision. What catastrophic visions come up for you? And that's basically your triad of fear, And so working with those three pieces are really, really, really critical to shifting the belief. So you think new thoughts. So for instance, literally going from I cannot to I can, or to it's possible, or to I'm willing, right? To make it more open.
Yeah.
And then with that thought, it is, what is the corresponding feeling that I'm looking to have? It might even simply be neutrality. You don't have to move from hate to love. It can be neutral. It can be willingness.
Yeah.
And that's the feeling that you are focused on practicing. And then there's the vision. What is the vision of you succeeding in that, within that goal? And it's about practicing that vision. That new triad is going to help someone in the practice of shifting that belief.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's something very conscious you can do.
Yes.
So catch the belief. I don't think I can really do this. Flip it. Yes, I can do this. Notice, what's the feeling? How's the feeling shift? So I can't turns into, I feel bad. I feel scared. I feel doubtful. I feel like an idiot. I feel all those things. Shift that to I can, and the feeling goes with it, and consciously like tap into, move into that feeling of, well, so what if I could do that? What would that feel like? Well, it would feel awesome and amazing and expansive and fun and kind of surprising, but in a really cool way, right? And then what's the vision? I love that. That's what you bring to this. It's new to me. That when you have, because I'm used to hearing about feelings, thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. You're saying thoughts, feelings, and vision. That when you have a thought, you have a feeling that goes with it. You instantly have a vision, which usually is something we're catastrophizing. But when you flip it, the thought is, yeah, I can. The feeling is, that would be awesome. And the vision is, what does it look like when somebody pays you $5,000 for a 3-month contract to do powerful work with you?
Yes.
Boom.
Boom.
Yeah. That feels
and
good.
Then, yeah. And then in meditation or in your practice, or even when you notice like the catastrophic vision, but you're not tapped into the thought, you're like, oh, there I am. I must have been thinking, which means I'm probably also feeling. And so now I've got to like shift. It's like you can catch yourself at multiple points.
Yeah. So it's really is tuning in and becoming aware of what's going on in your thoughts so that you consciously shift this, which means you have more power. Yeah. I love
Absolutely.
that. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm so glad you brought us back to that, because I would have.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Later on, I would have been, oh, shoot, we never did get there. So this is what happens when I just go where we go, right?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Yeah. I think that was the one little piece that I wanted to just bring in, was that piece. And that's it. I think this has been such an incredibly juicy, fun, engaging, deep conversation. Yeah.
That's how I like it. That's how I like it.
This is fun.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. You have been a delight. So much fun. And I know that people are going to get a ton out of this when they hear it. And thank you for being willing to sort of follow me and all this messy stuff. It's great.
So fun.
And y'all have an awesome week. Everyone who's listening to this, I hope you enjoy this and even half as much as I have, because it really is juicy and delightful. And this kind of stuff can totally turn things around for you in your practice. So do it. All right. And do it. Enjoy it. Celebrate it. Own it. Shine it. Have a great week, everybody. And I will see you next time right here on Ideal Practice.